Some cars just suck, and they deserve to fail. Just like I did when I was in high school. You know, cars like the Aztec and the HHR were total flops, and rightfully so. But every so often a car comes along that was actually awesome and should by all accounts have been a huge success. Instead, they end up being canceled faster than a modern comedian. Today, I have 12 such cars, and it is no joking matter because the last one is probably the weirdest car that we've ever covered on Ideal, and it looks like a friggin' UFO. But before I get into it real quick, did you know that we're on TikTok? We post bite-sized Ideal vids about Ideal cars every day. Link is down in the description, and give us a look if you like shorter content. So let's start with one of the best everyman cars ever made, the Volkswagen PHAETON. And I mean, heck, this already has fate in its name. But you see, the PHAETON is actually a pretty awesome car. It's luxurious, has an 8 and optional 12-cylinder engine, and currently they are an absolute bargain. Like, no, really. Less than 2 years ago, our friends over at Everyday Driver bought one for just $5 grand. And if you want a wild luxury cruiser that will impress really anyone for well under 10,000 bucks, go get one. But when they came out, they were like a really expensive Volkswagen. And since its spiritual sibling, the Audi A8 was the same size, was lighter, faster, and had 4 circles on the badge instead of, well, it's saying Volkswagen, most people just bought that instead, leaving the VW flagship PHAETON to fall by the wayside. Now, Volkswagen actually lost over $30,000 per sale in the process of every single PHAETON. Yeah. Since research and development was so expensive to produce this land yacht, they lost a friggin' ton of money. So the first gen only ran for 4 years, and they barely managed to sell over 3,000 units, which granted is 100 times more than our next car, or do we call it a kit car, the truly wild Vector W8. It's insane, both to drive and to look at. It was basically the Hennessy Venom of its time, with a rumored record-setting 248 mile/hour top speed. And yet, without some celebrity love from Dax Shepard or inclusion in the occasional video game, the Vector would have probably almost been completely forgotten. Why? Well, for one thing, just like the Venom, it was never really a completed car. It was just always an almost done vehicle. And then in '93, a whole bunch of internal issues killed the project only after 22 W8s were made. But hey, the creator of this car claims that he has a new one in the works, so there is that. Speaking of company issues, do you remember Pontiac and their GTO? The original GTO, the GOAT, sits up there with the other legends like Chevelle, Daytona, and Torino. So when GM brought back the name in 2003 as a V8 manual coupe, it had all the drippings of a true enthusiast car. And I think you and me were both really excited. Fortunately, they let us down. The styling didn't capture the I have new car money crowd. And just like the Chevy SS, they totally dropped the ball in the marketing department. The final nail in the coffin though came in '06 when GM first started killing off their brands, phasing out the GTO first, then phasing out Pontiac entirely just 3 short years later. Now, the GTO was all power and no style, unlike the Prowler, which was all style and no power. It looked so good. In fact, I remember seeing it in calendars and on posters like everywhere, even in my room. And frankly, I just loved it. Kind of like if you're loving this video so far, hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm because this retro modern was done right. No PT Cruiser or HHR bloated grossness in this thing. It was just pure roadster. Unfortunately, it didn't have anything under the hood to back up that style, which kind of sounds like my dance moves. Yeah, I know I should wear shoes when I dance, but anyway, back to the Prowler. I'm really not sure why Chrysler would go through all the trouble of making something look like a hot rod and then give it an anemic little V6 that was also in the Dodge Intrepid. Yeah, seems really strange nowadays with Dodge stuffing Hellcat V8s and everything, doesn't it? Regardless, no one bought the Prowler, and after only 4 years, they axed the line. Many of these cars are just one decision away from greatness. Like if Pontiac had marketed the GTO to enthusiasts, or if the Prowler had a V8, but the BRICKLIN SV-1. It was just a victim of truly terrible luck. And in 1974, the hype was real. The SV1, which stood for safety vehicle, really? Was to be an ultimate genre-defining sports car with a big V8, gull-wing doors, and fiberglass construction. Notably though, it had rollover protection and crumple zones 30 years before they were mandatory, which I guess surviving a crash is kinda neat. Unfortunately though, the company was run by yahoos. The price of everything skyrocketed in the mid-70s, the oil crisis meant sports cars were bad and no one would sell them the fiberglass. And they had constant worker struggles, killing the project just after 1 year of production. And they only sold 2/3 of the 3,000 cars made. Ouch. We've done a few sports cars now, but let's shift gears and go into something completely different. You know, business in the front, party in the back. We're talking about a pickup truck. And what do you get if you take an F-150 and try to make it a Rolls-Royce? Well, you get a Lincoln Blackwood, which absolutely sounds amazing on paper, right? A super schwanky F-150 that has cabinet doors instead of a tailgate so you don't feel like you're a peasant. I mean, you can go to work on your farm, then to the gala and not be embarrassed. Except, who the hell does that? Who has Lincoln Navigator money but wants to drive a pickup truck instead? Well, about 2,700 people answered that question, and Lincoln thought they would sell about 10,000 of them, but ended production just after 3,000. And although nowadays a lot of trucks touch luxury car levels of opulence, so, you know, maybe they were just ahead of their time. Not as ahead of their time as GM was in the 90s though. And they made a Tesla. Well, not really a Tesla, but it was electric, mass-produced, and had all the tech car nerds were screaming for. It looked like the future, and it had gobs of torque. And most people that drove them around enjoyed the experience. But there was one problem. Battery tech just wasn't there yet. So you could only enjoy driving the EV1 around for about an hour. And then you were basically screwed because charging stations weren't really a thing in the mid-90s. Chevy still managed to sell over 1,000 of them. So hey, better than the next Tesla wannabe on our list, the infamous FISKER Karma. And that's not fair. The Karma was actually designed by the same guy that designed the Tesla S. In fact, our boy Elon said that this guy saved his best design language for the FISKER, which, I mean, I guess is a compliment, although I haven't fully gotten behind the design language on the Model S. But the FISKER looks different. It's stunning. You get hints of Tesla, a little bit of Maserati over here, and then a little bit of Porsche over there when you're squinting at it. But barely 2,400 Karmas were ever built, largely because they never lived up to the hype. Here's a car that looks fast, efficient, and practical. In reality, it's none of those things though, and they like to catch fire. Yikes. The only reputation that's worse than FISKER's is DeLorean. Speaking of, let me know your favorite movie machine in the comments. I predict a lot of orange Supras, but personally, I think Doc Brown's time machine is one of the coolest. And the car is based on the DMC-12, and it's one that really needs hours to properly unpack. The short of it is though, is that it's radically styled. The body is made of stainless steel, and DeLorean himself was a freaking madman. But I mean madman due to the constantly breaking the law thing, not in the cool Carroll Shelby way. The feds actually busted him after only making 6,000 cars, and not even an awesome movie franchise could save the company. These small boutique companies don't really surprise me when they go out with a bang though. I get more surprised when, say, Ford makes a luxury truck, or when Chrysler makes a cold hot rod, or when Chevy makes a very, very, very strange sibling to the Corvette. And well, the Cadillac XLR just entered the chat. They look great and share a platform with the Corvette, and had a folding hardtop so that you got clean coupe lines with the ability to drop the top. And the best thing about it is that they even had a supercharged Dash V version, which made plenty of bald eagles. Just one issue. Unlike the Corvette, which had the legendary and bulletproof LS1 V8, the XLR got this terrifyingly unreliable Northstar V8 under the hood. And without a proper power plant and plagued by mechanical issues, the XLR was never able to take on its competition, being regularly beat by cars like the Mercedes SL500. And in 2008, Cadillac ended production of the XLR after only selling 1,200 cars that year, barely topping 15,000 total cars sold, which is a lot compared to many other cars on this list, but twice as many Corvettes are sold every single year. So, into the garbage it went. And I think we have room for one more failed boutique sports car. The LEXUS RS2000 had everything it needed to be a Lotus rival. And yeah, you probably have never heard of LEXUS, but you've probably seen their work if you like race cars, since they made the bodies for a lot of open wheel cars throughout history. They also made a truly insane sports car in the 60s. It was this weird as hell two-stroke mid-engine two-seater, which I'll admit is like the whole reason that I wanted to bring it up. Mid-engine, 1200cc, two-stroke. That's like 10 dirt bike engines strapped together. Just listen. Anyway, the company was eventually passed down from father to son. And in honor of that transition, they decided to make a 200 horsepower, ultra lightweight, mid-engine sports car called the RS2000. Sadly, it was not a two-stroke, but it was a really good looking Elise-based sports car, good for 0 to 60 in around 4 seconds. So not much to complain about. Then in 2012, after producing just 25 special RS2000 GTs that were even faster, the entire company filed for bankruptcy and all traces of the corporation were gone. Just poof. Insane. Or is it as insane as the honorable mention, baby? Now, we just did an entire video on this one, which is why it's only an honorable, but it deserves a mention. The Lexus LFA. AKA the best car that no one has ever driven, but no one bought it either. Now, this video is about cars that were a financial failure, and I'm not philosophical enough to talk about the long-term ramifications of a halo car or how important experimental design is. You can totally watch Squid wax on and wax off all about it up here. And believe it or not, this video up here got over 1 million views in the first week. So it's a timeless hit that you definitely want to go check out. And all I know, because I didn't watch the vid, is that the LFA didn't sell well, even though Toyota sold them at a huge loss, because they were still $400,000. And people that could afford that kind of car didn't want a Lexus, which hurts to say now, but that's history. Okay, guys, gals, dogs, whatever. We have one last car, and I saved the weirdest for lastest. Presenting the 2E. What the F is it? It's I think it's called a car? Even though it only has 3 wheels, that's made by a company called APTERA Motors. It's fast, sleek, looks like a UFO, and is powered by innovative electric motors. In 2004, when the company was formed, everyone wanted a piece of the future, especially the government, who promised a ton of startup money for anybody that could make a consumer electric vehicle. And after tons of prototypes, an official 2E was presented in 2009. But the government never followed through. Shocking, right? A government failing on its promises? Anyways, the feds claimed that the investment money only applied for 4-wheel vehicles, and the radical styling kept more traditional investors away, forcing the company to fold in 2011, and then reemerge a couple years ago with an even more wild EV. And so, that is the ideal list. It just goes to show that sometimes one bad decision can ruin a car, or sometimes it's just luck, or sometimes it's really a government conspiracy. So get out your tinfoil hats, because I've been Brad Danger. This is Ideal Cars. Please subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and check out some of the other Ideal content. Oh, promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.